Okay, so let me try my best then. Good evening, everyone. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about this love your neighbor as yourself. But just so that you know what to expect, we're going to spend the first few slides on the basics of this theme, love your neighbor as yourself, just like you would find it in the chapter 11 of the Gospel. And then we're going to go from there to look into the other side of this theme, which is what do we need to be able to love our neighbor? Okay? Okay. One minute, I'm getting there. Is there just one here, or? Okay. All right, so this chapter 11 of the Gospel that talks about love your neighbor as yourself encompasses, well, Jesus, when he was explaining the first commandment of God, and then, of course, he said what it is, and then he said this encompasses all the laws and the prophets. So everything is included in here. So there's a big message here, although we normally don't pay too much attention to what's really included here on those few words. But, for example, it's the pathway to progress. Personal progress. So that's how we're going to evolve. When Jesus said, love God above all and love your neighbors like yourself, he was determining that's the way we are going to grow spiritually. And that's the path to the higher worlds, to the happy worlds. And also, of course, as we progress personally, we bring along the whole humanity. So if everybody, every time we make a progress, every one of us, in the total, you can imagine, we are progressing as human beings. And then also, the planet keeps progressing. As it's not just humanity, the planet keeps progressing. This world, you probably don't remember, but that, planet Earth has been, or was at the beginning, a primitive world. So the progress is for everything. And of course, you hear quite frequently nowadays the upcoming planet transition, right? Okay, and then to make his point, Jesus was telling us the parable of the creditors and debtors. That's that one where there was a soldier that owed to the king. I'll make it up, like 10,000, whatever it was at the time. Let's call it reais. Is that okay? Okay, and then of course the king called him and said, it's overdue. You haven't, you can't just keep going like that. You've got to pay me, or I'm going to throw you in jail. And then that poor guy said, he started to beg for compassion from the king, and explain and say, hey, give me some more time. I will pay you. I just don't know, I can't do it right now, but I will. I'm going to be working around the clock, and I will pay you. The king then said, okay, you can go. You don't even have to pay. So he forgave the debt. That same guy left and he was out in the street, and he met someone, another guy that owed him like 100 reais, not 10,000, but just 100. And he started, he approached the guy, said, you've got to pay me. You owe me this. It's overdue, and you've got to pay me. Otherwise, I'm going to throw you in jail. And the guy did the same thing. So, well, but I'm going to beg for your compassion. I just cannot pay right now, but I will. And the soldier did not really buy any of that and threw the guy in jail. Then the other soldiers that was listening to that, went to the king and told him. And then the king, asked for the soldier, to come to his presence, and then said, you see, you asked for my compassion. I gave you. Then this other brother of you, right, asked for your compassion, and you did not give him anything. So, therefore, you were going to go to jail. The key word here is compassion. The other very deep or very profound teaching here is whatever we ask from God, or whatever we ask to God, or to our Spirit's benefactors, okay? We remember there are people behind us that are going to knock our doors, asking for our compassion or help or whatever that is. And we are here to help those that are behind us. And of course, we do have the opportunity and the right to ask for compassion and help from the higher levels. Also, in this chapter, there is this parable of give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Caesar, to each one, what, I'm sorry, but I'm missing a word here. Give to each one what belongs to him or her. Let's understand that real quick. So these Pharisees came to Jesus and trying to catch him, say, Jesus, Master, is it okay, is it legal, is it licit to pay taxes to Caesar? And then Jesus, of course, he knew there was a little bit of a catch in there, because depending on how he would react, people would take, the story to Caesar. And then he says, okay, anybody here has a coin? Somebody, one of the Pharisees said, okay, here's the coin. And say, what is that face? Or who is in that face in that coin? And then the Pharisees said, well, that's Caesar. And then he said, give to Caesar what belongs to him, what's for Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. So big lesson there, because that principle, as it is, as we say here, we should do to others as we would have them do to us. This is the principle of justice. But not only that, we have to be able to separate what we owe to the material world and what we owe to God. Okay, love. Love, summarizes everything, all the divine law. Jesus Christ came over here 2,000 years ago to introduce us to this word love and to the whole concept and everything that comes out of that concept, which is basically everything, as they say, summarize the whole thing. So if somebody puts a gun in your head and ask you to summarize the whole scriptures and Bibles and Gospels in one word, that word is love. And when we were created, we just had instincts. It was just a little bit better than animals. We had a lot more capacity than the animals, but we only had instincts. Those instincts were the base, were the seeds out of which we would grow sensations and then sentiments. This is a long, I don't know how many, years, 1,000 years. But the whole idea is to go from having instincts to end up with a spirit full of great sentiments, of which love is the most sublime one. We are going to do that through reincarnation, as we all know. And this thing of love your neighbor as yourself brings the question, who is our neighbor? Right? And by now, everybody here knows what the answer is. It's everybody, not just that person that is, sitting next to you, but it's the everybody, because we're all brothers and sisters under Jesus, under the God. John Evangelist, he was very old. He could barely speak, and he kept repeating, love one another, because he knew that was the pathway to heaven. Now here's a great definition, because if you ask anybody anybody to define for you what love is, you're going to get several different versions or definitions. And I think it was in 2013 where the most asked questions, Googled question was, what is love? But we do have one definition of love in chapter 11 that, to me at least, is absolutely fantastic. What I'm going to show you is just part of it, and I'm going to read with you. It says, to love, in the true sense of the word, is to be loyal, honest, and conscientious, to do to others what we would have them do to us. It is to look around oneself and seek the inner meaning behind all of the pain afflicting your fellow creatures, so as to be better able to offer some relief. It is to consider the great human family as your own, because at some future point you will be re-encountering this family in other more advanced worlds, along with other spirits who, like you, are also God's children destined to infinite elevation. And just the other part of it, thus you cannot deny to your fellow men and women what God has liberally granted to you, seeing that on your side you should be happy that they give you what you need. Therefore, always have a word of comfort and hope for all who suffer, so that you may be holy, just, and loving. Believe that the wise saying, love greatly so as to be greatly loved, will open up the way. These words are revolutionary and follow up a pathway that is sure and invariable. So it's going to go all the way through the end. Of course, here is a high-level definition that would fit in any definition that you want to create yourself. So if you sit down tonight and try to create a definition, you're going to find a way to put those words in there somehow, because it's much bigger than just love your wife or love your husband or your kids. It's going to fit in any definition, at least the way I see it. Okay. Oh, just by curiosity, just comes to my mind. It was written by Sansom in 1863, and we, in one of our sessions in our center over there, we received a message from Sansom along these lines, and I was just it was an incredible night, that evening, and we were reading, we were listening to that, and then at the end, signed by Sansom was really something. Selfishness, we know, is the opposite of love. Denial of charity is the large obstacle to the happiness of man. Jesus was the example of charity, while Pilate was the example of selfishness. Okay. Mother Teresa said, the fruit of faith is love, which means for you to love, you have to have faith. And then she goes on and say, and the fruit of love is service, charity, helping each other, which is the theme of tonight, right? Love your neighbor. So charity without faith is not enough. If you can make it, but we can pretend to do charity to anybody. But true charity will require us to love and have faith. Of course, we have limited. Those that do not follow that simple rule are those that have a limited view of the earthly life. Happiness in this world, it is possible, and although not complete, but it is possible. I was just listening on the way over here, a tape that I got from YouTube, came to me through Facebook, and Chico Xavier was saying that he had he had nothing, and as far as money or luxury or whatever, and he was happy. So he found his happiness outside the material world, of course. Okay, that is a review of chapter 11. Now let's get complicated here. What is it we need to be able to love our neighbors as ourselves? So far we saw that that's the pathway to God, to Jesus, to the happy words, okay? We are here. When that's included in the first commandment, okay, that tells you there's no other way. But if you want to come back to your Creator, okay, you've got to learn that lesson. It's only through relationship. It's only through loving one another. And but what does it take to love your neighbor? The first thing is to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, as we're going to see in a minute, then you don't even know what love is all about. And if you don't want to go that far, if I ask you, do you love your brother? You're going to say, yeah. And say, how much? Because you can only love him as much you love yourself, nothing more. Now, for you to love yourself, though, you have to be introduced to this concept of self-acceptance. If you don't accept yourself as you are, then you cannot love yourself. Then you're going to spend your life hiding yourself, not living yourself, not living what you mean to the world, to those that you live with. But we're not done yet. After all of that, you have to accept your neighbor. So without those three things here, we are going to be in a position to accomplish what's in the first commandment. It's not just like that. Okay, I understand we're here to love our neighbors, and yeah, I'm fully aware of that. Well, it's not that simple. Gotta love ourselves first. Let's talk more about it. Just reading a book this week, and I found something that said, well, this is going to fit wonderfully here in this presentation. It's the guy from this Gary Zukav in this book, that the Seat of the Soul. And he says, if you cannot love yourself, you cannot love others, and you cannot even stand to see others being loved. Think about it. So not only you cannot love yourself, not only you cannot love others if you don't love yourself, but you're going to be what? Jealous. You're not going to accept that others are being loved and you are not. Not even to talk about those that go into a divorce or separation or breakup and then say, well, if I see him with another, I'm going to kill her. Okay? So it's this big fear that, yeah, I don't want you anymore, but don't let me catch you with somebody else. Okay. If you cannot love yourself, loving others becomes a very painful endeavor with only occasional moments of comfort. So you're going to be living a fantasy here. Pretending that you love somebody, and you're going to be just pretending, and you're going to just get here and there some moments that you're going to be happy with. In other words, loving others or how you treat yourself is your own dose of your own medicine that you give to others at the same time. So, as much as you love you, as much as you feel for you, is how much you can, is exactly what you're going to give to others. When you can do kindly things to yourself, then you know what it is to be able to love yourself. You're going to feel good when you do good for yourself, when you accomplish something, when you see that you have made changes that are very important for your spirit, for your soul, and you say, well, yeah, I feel good about myself. I think I'm in the right path here. I'm progressing. Right? It's only then you can look at others who desperately need kindness and love and feel good about their getting it. So this is very interesting because, you know, when you feel you did something for yourself, you feel good. Now you know how that feels like. What is it feeling good? If you never felt good about yourself, how are you going to appreciate how others will feel about when you give them something? So that's to explain the issue here that we have. The dilemma is, can't love my neighbors until I love myself. Suffering is meaningful. Suffering can be endured because there is a reason for it, like we know here, you know, the cause and consequences, cause and effects, karma, if you will, and because there is a reason for it that is worth the effort. What is more worthy of your pain than the evolution of your soul? Here is, you know, going back to the basics of our doctrine. We would love to be here in this world of trial and expiations and be the only ones that don't suffer at all. Wouldn't that be nice? But that's not possible. You have to wait until you get at least to the next level of worlds. So suffering, there's a meaning behind suffering. But that meaning makes more sense to you when you understand it. And wouldn't we sacrifice a little bit to be able to evolve spiritually? So without an awareness of your karmic interactions, of the experiences of other lifetimes of your soul, you are not able to understand the depth of the potential awakenings that can result from your interactions with a parent or a sibling. Okay, this thing here is not complicated, but it's a lot bigger than what you can see here. We have to struggle to learn how to love. And why do we have to struggle? Everything has to do with our level of development, spiritual and moral development, and even intellectual development. But that is a result of everything we accomplished so far in so many incarnations. Now, you're going to have to deal with that. When we are going to be talking about self-acceptance, it means accept ourselves just like we are, not as somebody that's defective, but somebody that has reached that point in our development. It's not good or bad. It's just how much we accomplished so far. And that's the point where we're going to start to take the next step, to upgrade it a little bit. Okay. So everybody knows this guy here, Homer. You know, he has a lot of interesting things to say, but don't ever follow him, okay? He's there to confuse you. He says, I wake up relatively happy every morning. Then I interact with people and things started to change very quickly. So you see, in his problem is the people. You know, he's happy when he wakes up. And then the wife comes in and says good morning. Everything changes. goes to the job, get out in the street, and then his days goes sour. So what's wrong with him? Okay. So to love our neighbor, we need to feel good. Psychologically, morally, spiritually. Try to love even your husband or wife when you are mad. Is that a good time to love him? Can you do it? No. If you want to love someone, you need to be in peace with yourself. You need to feel good. And then you're going to do something that I'm going to show you here. This is from that movie, Celestial Prophecy. It's a book, and maybe a couple of you may have read this. It's a very interesting book. And one of the things that what you are seeing here, this is a slide of the movie, so it's not perfect. But what you can see here is the following. When we are interacting with someone, just like I am, we are here, okay? But imagine those two people interacting. They are releasing energy. So there's an exchange of energy every time you interact with someone. And that energy, if that's a good energy, you're going to be involved in a wonderful psychosphere for a wonderful conversation, whatever the conversation is. Because there is this positive impact of the energy around you. So, this is just to illustrate if you are mad, what kind of an energy we're going to exchange with the first one you're going to talk with. Right? It's not going to work very well. I'm going to introduce you to a book that does not exist as yet. This guy, Daniel Goleman, who is the guy that came up with the emotional intelligence that became very famous scientifically and it's all over the place. And he spent quite a bit of time with Dalai Lama. And he came back with the Dalai Lama's, I think it's here, the Dalai Lama's vision for our world. And he put that in a book. And the book is going to be released on the 23rd of June. And inside that book, what you're going to find is what they call the core points. There are 8 core points in there. And I'm going to only show you 2 so you can look for the other 6. That's what happened in that book that I was referring to, the prophecy. I think it was 12 or 9. I think it was 9 prophecies. And they could only find one at a time because it was a paper that got lost in Peru, and they looked for this paper all over the place, but they were only finding one at a time. So here I'm going to give you the first one. Remember, here is Dalai Lama saying, talking about his vision for our world. Dalai Lama is looking, his flag is fraternity, okay? And he is saying, before anything else, you have to free your mind and your heart. To change the world most effectively, begin with a calm and clear mind. So if any of us here say, well, after this lecture, I'm going to decide to love, to do all that self-acceptance and love myself, etc. First thing you're going to do is clear your mind and your heart. So start from fresh. No preconcepts. No hatred, no nothing, no attachments. The second one is embody compassion, which is compassion comes naturally, and we can strengthen it to include all of the humanity. What Dalai Lama is talking about here is humbleness, no attachments in the first place. If we want to love someone, And if you want to love yourself as well, it is imperative that we be humble and not the opposite. That we don't have any attachments. That we are not hold down the person to our territory or to our souls even. The second one has to do with love your neighbor. Embody compassion. The minute we, all of us, and the other 7 billion people, we wake up in the morning saying, it's time for compassion, we are pretty much done. We're going to be ready for the great transition. Okay, so to love oneself, as we said before, first the thing we need is a strong self-acceptance. What does that mean? Just as we are, and not how we would like to be, because it's very simple to say, well, no, I will love myself like nobody else can love, itself or himself or herself. As soon as, okay, I do all of these things here. Well, okay, but right now then, you don't love yourself. Same thing for the context. We have to live within the context and still accept ourselves within that context, even if we don't like it. Of course, that's the case today. The world is really it's almost upside down right now. And that's the context. We have to live with that and still do what we're supposed to do, love ourselves and then love our brothers. Of course, then you need self-discovery. Prepare for an honest self-assessment. Who am I? What are my strengths and weaknesses? And accept them, not as defect, as we said before, as an unfinished job. It's a job that's perhaps halfway through. We are all imperfect people, and there's nothing we can do about it other than work on it. Prepare to overcome the barriers to accept our weaknesses. So, Tara Brach, a person that I love a lot, is a scientist, and she has just her CV would take us 30 minutes here. But she said, the boundaries of our self-acceptance are the same as our freedom. So our freedom only starts at the point we accept ourselves the way we are. So what happens then if we don't do that? You are not free. You're going to spend your life pretending, using masks, trying to convince everybody else that you're better than you really are, or bigger, or whatever the situation is. And you cannot go to bed at the end of the day and just relax, because next day it's going to be another fight to keep me where I would like to be. Okay, talking about barriers. Mother Teresa came with this. And of course you can see that was written long ago. But the biggest disease today is not leprosy or tuberculosis, but rather the feeling of not belonging. Okay. There's so many ways we could analyze why we don't love ourselves as much as we could, don't accept ourselves. But I thought this one here, this approach here from Mother Teresa was a good one. The feeling of not belonging, the feeling of not being accepted, or not being prepared to be accepted, not being loved. So that is a big disease in this world here. This feeling that I may not be accepted, I may be rejected. So I need to do something about it. I'm never good enough. Never good enough. So if we're never good enough, can you imagine living 80 years like that? Never good enough. Always chasing something that would make you good. And sometimes we then we marry someone that's supposed to complete us. And then it doesn't work that way. So the feeling of not belonging is a very serious thing that affects all of us. And I'm saying all of us here, never take it personally, right? I'm talking about humanity and other people, your neighbors, those that are not here tonight, right? So, talking about rejection, there's this guy here that said, as I look back on my life, I realized that every time I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was actually being redirected to something better. Okay. There's a number of stories, even in the gospel or other books, right? There's this one that a guy, it was raining, cats and dogs, and this guy out in nowhere in the country, and he was asking God to help him find a place to shelter himself, and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, then there was this house there somewhere, and then he knocks the doors, and keeps knocking the door, and nobody would open the door for him, and then he had to go and go look for something, another place. And then he got very upset with God. So, well, what kind of a help was that? The guys never opened the door to me. Well, next day then he finds that house later on got visited by people that were there to assault the house, and they killed everyone inside the house. So this is something that's for to teach us something in somewhere in our literature. But that's what it is. We don't know if we are being rejected or redirected. But a lot will depend on what you're looking for and what you're doing to deserve being helped by this kind of a spirit or that kind of a spirit, right? But don't just say, I'm being rejected. You may just be being redirected to a better place. The other interesting thing that I saw was respect yourself enough to walk away from anything that no longer serves you, grows you, or makes you happy. So whenever we are confronted with a situation, we normally have three alternatives in front of us. One is to flee, just run away, okay? And don't confront that situation. The other one is to fight the situation, trying to put it down, win it, destroy it, whatever we are dealing with here. The third one is to adjust to it. Of course, we're going to look for the one that's best for us. However, there are many, many circumstances that we have to run from it as opposed to adjust to it or to fight it. But we don't make the decisions that we've got to make because of we don't love ourselves enough to say enough is enough. Okay, before we go over there, I want to talking about loving ourselves and the way we react to situations as opposed to respond to situations. That same Tara Brach that I introduced to you a minute ago, in one of her books, she tells us a story that's very interesting, which is Mom and dad and little daughter, like let's imagine here, 7 years old, went to a restaurant for dinner. And they get to the restaurant, sit down, etc., and comes the lady that was attending them, attending the table, and the lady started to get the orders. And then the husband or the father and so, well, I want this, 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 this. Then turns to the wife, and the wife, oh, here's what I want. Okay. Then turns to the little lady. And the lady says, oh, I want hot dog and fries and Coca-Cola. The father immediately jumped and said, no, that's not what you want. Here's what she wants, turning to the attendant, the waitress, and said, she's going to have meatloaf and milk. Well, the waitress in that minute, without even looking at the father, turns to the lady and says, honey, what do you want in that hot dog? Well, mom and dad just got frozen, there. And then the lady walks away with the order, and the little girl then turns to mom and dad and say, did you see? She thinks I'm real. She thinks I'm real. Because at 7 years old, she already knew she's here in this world to satisfy mom and dad, to do what they wanted, to be what they want her to be, to behave the way mom and dad want her to behave. And that story goes on in our lives, okay? And even, this is an actual case. A lady of 35 years, it's all confused and about her future, her life. Everything seems to be going wrong. And she's suffering from depression. And she gets home. The first thing the mama is going to say is, you were too fat. You got to start a diet. You were too fat. You're not going to get anywhere this way. So that was a confirmation to her that she is defective. She's not up to speed. She's not up to anything. She is defective. Mom, in her mind, will say, you see, I'm sure she'll listen to me, right? Yeah, but it was just another nail in the coffin of the poor lady. So we as fathers and mothers, as grandmas, we got to be very careful. We've got to learn the impact of our behaviors on what we do. This is coming from another book now, from a guy that's even bigger than this. Daniel, okay, I'll remember his name later. Daniel Siegel. Those things that the way we create people, the way we have been raised, they put us apart from our true sentiments. They create a distance, make us distance ourselves from our true sentiments. And then, no wonder why we can't love ourselves. We are all defective. You're too fat. No, you're not going to eat this. And so many occasions, and hopefully you don't know what I'm talking about, but you probably know somebody else that has been raised like that, and we lose our sight over our sentiments, and we become defective, and then we don't love ourselves. So here, the key is self-acceptance. But we're getting to the end here. Be patient. So love oneself and love your neighbor. This guy here said, we are all visitors to this time, this place. We're just passing through. Our purpose here is to observe, to learn, to grow, to love. And then we return home. So what love? Learn to love without condition. Talk without bad intention. Give without any reason. And most of all, care for people without any expectation. So that's a very simple and summarized, concise way to give us very precise and specific directions on what we are expected to do if we are to love. Okay. The other thing that is important for us to know if we want to try to become more of ourselves, and not that little lady that said, oh, they believe that I'm real. We cannot decide how others will treat us. I don't know what you're going to do when I walk outside here, but I can decide how I'm going to react to that. I can just say, oh, that's what you think? Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you. Or you can say, you know what? Start counting down. You're going to die. Okay. The judgment coming from others is their story. It's not ours. Let it go peacefully, drifting away. The minute we reach that, it's almost like you lost 30 pounds in 5 seconds. If we just could switch and change to that. Oh, is that what you think? Okay, interesting. There's an old joke about a father who sends a telegram to his son and say, start worrying, details to follow. So how about receiving could be an email, right? Text message. Let's update this thing here. Start worrying, details to follow. I'll see you tomorrow. Well, what we're trying to talk here comes in the next bullet point here. Because we live in a free-floating state of anxiety nowadays, we don't even need a problem to set off a stream of disaster scenarios. We don't need a problem. We just need somebody to tell you, you better worry about something. So that's all we need. And then we say, well, maybe the world is going to come to an end. It's going to be tonight. Oh, my God. That's because we live in this state of anxiety. We suffer a lot, but we could learn how to release some of that anxiety and live a lot better. Part of it is by being ourselves. So I don't know what my Father has for me tomorrow, but I can't think of anything that I need to worry about right now. Okay? And talking about worries, our friend Mark Twain said, I have spent most of my time worrying about things that have never happened. I don't know if that happened to you. So you worry about a lot of stuff, like, oh, I don't know, the way things are going, I think they're going to close the company, I'm going to lose my job. And 5 years later, I say, well, I guess that was not the case, so why did I suffer so much, right? And that happens a lot. Okay, to wrap up, we need to love ourselves to be lovable. I didn't say to be loved, lovable. We need to be lovable. We need to be such a person that people can love us. We need to have those characteristics of somebody that's loved by everybody. So, if you're not lovable, how can you be loved? And to love others. We need to feel free and have self-confidence to be best prepared to love others. Feel free. Remember Dalai Lama. free your mind, free your heart, to have confidence and be best prepared. We cannot help anyone if we believe we are deficient. Not good enough. Not good enough is the jargon, here in English, that most people use. I'm not good enough. Whatever happened to my relationship, and then you say, well, I know, I'm not good enough for her or for him. How would you be able to love others if we are not well? We're not feeling well, we don't feel good. We can't love others from inside a cage like this. If you put or find yourself or lock yourself in a cage, you can't be loved and you cannot love in a true way. So, have a nice weekend. Thank you very much. Thank you.